Good afternoon. This is a short video about Wars of the Roses armies for the rule set called Bloody Barons by Peter Pig. Now, Bloody Barons by Peter Pig is for armies. It's not a skirmishy type game. It's a historical army game. Army number 1 has got 8 levy foot units, 4 retinue foot units, 2 household foot units, 2 light guns and 2 heavy guns. So you go on quite heavy on the guns. Notice that the armies just add up to 40 points. Players buy units at a time. You don't buy individual figures, bits like that, just buy whole units. That keeps it nice and simple. The more units you buy, the cheaper they get of the same type. So if you buy a few of each type, that's okay. If you concentrate on one type, like a lot more retinue or a lot more levy, you get them at a slightly cheaper price. The reason is it gives your army more of a theme. A quality army, a poor quality army, that sort of idea. And you can see the points all worked out here. This particular army, army number 1, is quite big on artillery but has no cavalry. Perfectly normal for Wars of the Roses army. Here's army number 1, all laid out in a box, ready to be transported to the game's venue. On the left you can see 8 units of levy. Every unit has 4 bases in it. In the centre you can see 4 units of retinue. Once again, each unit has 4 bases in it. On the right bottom corner you can see 2 units of household. Once again, each unit has 4 bases in it. The Bloody Baron system works in units. Each unit has 8 increments of death. So if you use 4 bases, they die by the half base, giving 8 half base deaths. If you want to use 8 bases in a unit, make your game look bigger and grander, that's fine. Then the increments become a base each. If you want to use just one single base, you could have one base with a dice behind it and mark down how many it loses. 1 bit, 2 bit, 3 bit, 4 bit, 5 bit, 6, 7, 8, all gone, etc, etc. Also in this box you'll notice there's the 3 generals. There's also a whole heap of markers. The markers are optional, but they make the life a bit easier. On the far right, the general's abilities markers. Generals be good at either morale, fighting, bit unreliable, those sort of things. Half right, you'll see some half bases. So instead of writing anything down, when there's a casualty, you take off a half base. And that means there's no writing down to do, which is nice. You see the guns in the middle, upper middle. There's 2 light guns and 2 heavy guns. Heavy guns don't get to move in the game, and light guns only move a little bit in the game. The yellow markers are to mark on low on arrows. Once your units start shooting, you'll find they get low on arrows relatively quickly. And that's Army 1. Here is Army 2. For variety, I've made this one have a fair bit of cavalry in it. Now, Wars of Roses cavalry didn't just stand in the front line. They actually were mustered at the back of the army, then sent forward to do the action. Obviously, Baron Orderly did it slightly differently. Tried to charge up a hill, got slaughtered. Tried it again, got slaughtered and killed. Then his successor tried it again, just a waste of time. So in Bloody Barons, the cavalry are mustered off table and sent forwards at the right time. This army, army number 2, has got 2 units of household cavalry and 1 unit retinue cavalry. That's the most cavalry you can have in a Wars of the Roses army. They really weren't cavalry armies at all. It was the exception, not the rule. In addition, there's 4 units of levy, not as many levy units as army number 1. There's 7 units of retinue foot. They're the good middle troops which are experienced and good at fighting. And there's some household as well. Now this army with cavalry takes a slight risk. The cavalry might not actually get on the table, or they might get on the table 2 or even 3 times. But each time they attack across the table, they lose a half base per unit, just through fatigue. And they can't assault into woods, rough hills, that sort of scenery. But they can come out of that sort of scenery. So they can pop out of a nasty wood and hit the enemy, but they can't charge the enemy if the enemy are in a nasty wood or behind a hedge, that sort of thing. You can see by the sheet here that it's 40 points again. There's 12 foot units, which is fairly normal for this game. If a foot unit has 4 bases in it, that's 4 threes, 12 figures per unit. And if you've got 12 units, about 144, 150 figures, plus all the markers, about 160 figures for a Bloody Baron's army. The more levy you have, the more units you have. If you have cavalry, you've got to paint a horse and rider, but it's all quite doable. Once again, Bloody Barons is a battle, not a skirmish. And here is Army 2 in a nice box. This is ready to be taken to a show or one of the clubs I visit, things like that. On the far left, you see all the half bases and dead markers which are used during the game, so you don't have to write anything down or have odd little dice roaming around the table. The cavalry, you see 3 units there. At the bottom's a 4 base household unit. At the upper right is another 4 base household unit. And then there's a retinue unit, slightly less than 4 household troops. You can see the markers again. The round marks on coins are for morale, unreliable, fighting general, target general, those sort of qualities. Because each general tends to have some abilities. You could have multiple abilities or no abilities, but that's decided at the game start. The 3 generals, every army has 3 generals, are in the centre top. There's a C&C and 2 sub-commanders. Bottom 4 left-hand units are levy, and they're actually marked up as levy. On the right, you can see all the retinue units, 4 base per unit. At the top, you just see the bottom of the household unit. In Bloody Barons, every unit's assumed to have bows and fighting men in it. There's no need to show which is which. They all have proportion of it. So every unit can shoot, every unit can fire. You can have units just to pike men, but there are a little special rule for that. So all the units you see before you have bowmen and fighting men integral in them. It's not the player's job to be a general and a captain of a unit. It's the player as the general, and the caps of the unit have their bowmen, and they worry about shifting ranks and all sorts of odds and ends like that. Once again, complete army, about 140 figures there. Quite a lot of painting, but Wars Roses is easier because there aren't any heraldic shields. It's just men, armour, cloth and spiky bits. Thank you.